I put a lot of interdisciplinary thinking into my new, the proposal that I'm writing on. And so I'm
Great.
trying to...
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for joining us for this panel discussion on preparing students for global grand challenges. For our 50-minute session, we're delighted to have 3 university professors and an undergraduate student as panelists. They will respond to several questions that they have seen ahead of time, and will dig a bit deeper into each other's answers as we reflect upon their responses. I would like to begin by having each panelist give a 1-minute introduction.
Good morning. Nice to see all of you. My name is Teddy Potter. I'm a clinical associate faculty in the School of Nursing. I also am the director of inclusivity and diversity for the School of Nursing and executive editor of the Interdisciplinary Journal of Partnership Studies. And the reason why I'm here is you cannot nurse well if you're not a systems thinker.
Good morning. My name is Ben Ma. I'm a senior in the College of Food, Agricultural, and Natural Resources. My major is food science. So from the past slightly over 3 years, I have involved in campus internationalization and through student clubs and also works with the International Service Office. So I'm here because I think this is a great event today, and students' voice need to be present too.
Good morning. My name is Oscar Garza. I'm faculty at the College of Pharmacy in the Department of Pharmaceutical Care and Health Systems. My work is largely around population health and health equity. I'm also director of the Praxis Institute for Community Health and Education, which is a new initiative that will be launching this fall after about 2 years in development, partnering with the broader community organizations, activists, organizers from not just our local and state communities, but also around the world, as well as stakeholders within the university, to really look at how we prepare and train our future health professionals from a health equity, social justice, or broader equity kind of framework, and what that means as far as how we engage the community in that preparation, from our teaching, from our scholarship, as well as our service. And it's a pleasure to be here, honor to be here, join these panelists. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Abimbola Asojo. I'm a faculty in the Interior Design program in Department of Design, Housing, and Apparel in the College of Design. I'm also the program director of the Interior Design program. I'm an educator, an interior designer, and an architect. I'm here today because of my focus on cross-cultural design issues, computing and design, lighting design, globalization and design, and sustainable post-occupancy evaluation. So those are my research areas. I'm also passionate about involving my students in community-engaged projects, real-life projects, to prepare them for real-life settings.
Thank you, panelists. And I'm Gail Woodruff, the moderator. The university is a land-grant institution, and we have a long history of helping to solve challenges that are facing our society, even going back to the roots of our institution in the 1800s, when after the Civil War, our institution focused on peacetime pursuits of agriculture and mechanical arts. Serving the common good has been a theme of the university's mission since the beginning. That outward-facing mission of the university is to serve the people, and the mission weaves itself in and out of the ways that faculty, staff, and students engage within the university. Those faculty, staff, and students before us pioneered new ways of cultivating food to feed the world, innovated healthcare practices such as conducting the first heart transplants, and even created one of the most widely cited models of intercultural communication. Each new generation of professors, students, and staff has tackled the grand challenges of their day. And each generation has viewed challenges through the lenses of their times. To begin our conversation, I'd like to invite our faculty panelists to respond to the following 2 interrelated questions. First, how has the nature of grand challenges become more global over time? And secondly, in follow-up to this question, what are today's greatest challenges related to global issues? And I'd like to ask Dr. Potter to start.
In the past, everything was interconnected, no doubt about that. It's always been interconnected. But we had the luxury of waiting weeks or months before we felt the impact of something happening around the globe. Now it's instantaneous. A vote occurs in one place and instantly it affects our economic status in another place. A crop failure or a storm or a tsunami occurs one place and it immediately impacts another place. We no longer have the luxury of time. Everything is immediate and the changes and the impacts are huge. Everything is global, everything is local, and we need to come to understand that. So one of my concerns is that we need to be teaching and preparing all people, no matter where you work, no matter what your field of study, no matter what your discipline, to be thinking globally. And in healthcare, I pull out the example of Dallas. A couple years ago, a man came into the Dallas Emergency Department and had a fever and aches, and he was sent home, assuming it was a flu or a virus. That was inexcusable. This man had traveled recently to Liberia. It was inexcusable that someone did not connect the dots and think about, there's an Ebola outbreak happening there. Could this person have potentially been infected? That was never asked. It was not on anybody's radar. So we need to be preparing all people who may never travel to think globally. As far as the greatest grand challenge right now, as a nurse, I am most concerned about global climate change. I am very active in the movement. It has impacts on our food, it will have impacts on our water, on our immigration, on our diseases. We are seeing that with emerging diseases that never would have occurred here. We have got to be thinking globally to solve this, and that's the greatest grand challenge right now for me.
Thank you. Professor Garza?
Sure. I agree with everything Teddy Potter stated. But I think also one of the things, at least for me, that keeps me up at night is knowing that as fast and as broad as the impacts are occurring, and as our, I guess, the equity, our health inequities have grown over time despite the advancements in our technology and our lifestyles, one of the things we've neglected, I think, in addition to climate change, is the actual impact of this advancement on our environment as well. Mm-hmm. So our water supply, our agriculture, our flora, fauna are vastly being impacted by these advancements that we've kind of neglected, I think, over time. So I think that, in addition to the emerging and shifting epidemiological problems around the world, is going to be compounded. And what worries me is the allocation of resources on how we've addressed some of these problems or thought about these problems, because they're very complex, very interconnected. So I think that's something that it's good to see as a university and as a community that we're starting to tackle through a variety of sources and disciplines.
Professor Sojo?
Okay. For me, I agree with what my colleagues have said as well. Access to resources, for example, access to education, access to clean water, to technology or to health. I agree with all the things my colleagues have said. But, as a designer, I'm also concerned about crumbling systems and infrastructure due to inadequate resources. For example, using countries that have done research in Nigeria and South Africa, they have some of the richest infrastructure juxtaposed with the poorest. You could look in one direction and see like slums that are completely inhabitable, and you wonder how people live in them. And then you look in the other direction and you see like wealth. So I think, that's one of the issues facing society today. And it's important to make our students and, aware of this and see how they too can be part of a global community to contribute to alleviating some of these issues.
Thank you. As we've noted, the university has always been about the business of tackling these grand challenges, but now that we're in the 21st century, our drive is stronger than ever, and maybe our urgency is more pronounced than ever. We have before us a set of grand challenges that are posed by the Twin Cities strategic planning process, and the other university campuses have strategically considered how challenges impact their teaching, research, and outreach. Each of us at the university system-wide has a role to play in helping to tackle global grand challenges. Our next question for the panel is, how have grand challenges motivated you as a teacher, a researcher, or a student? And we'll begin with Ben.
Okay, so of course, I'm a student. I'm an undergraduate researcher as well, so I'll touch base on both. So as a student, actually, earlier this year on March 4th, Gail hosted another section in the another room just outside the Commons, and I was invited. And that was the first time I officially being exposed to the topic of ground challenges and global ground challenges. So the takeaway from me in that big discussion happening March 4th was how people are actually carrying this problem and how people are thinking of solutions and taking actions. So as a student, I was very honored to be in that discussion because rarely students could directly get involved in those discussions. Also, today's conference as well. So, to me, I think it's a motivation because it builds up my responsibility as the students are normally the younger generations that are would be even more impact to these global ground challenges. So after that discussion on March, I went back and wrote a proposal for an undergraduate research project. Within my discipline, food science, it's a wide subjects connect that focus on food, the subject of food. So what I did was to look at some of the existing studies and try to find the cross sections or trying to propose an interdisciplinary study. And with the help of my faculty mentor, I proposed a study that connects both food chemistry to microbiology, which impacts on foodborne pathogens. And we're trying to develop a natural preservatives for our orange juice product so we can avoid the chemical preservatives that consumers are driving right now. And at the same time, on top of this project, the professor himself is a food chemist. So I had to go out and reach out to other food microbiologists who can provide bench space, who can provide lab for me to have my other part of the study done. So I'm connecting these two professors together. And at the same time, since I have a sustainability minor, I would like to look at this issue at a life cycle perspective. So this is happening in another department in the biosystem bioengineering department that I consulted with another professor to say, okay, people tend to just be good at what they are doing. So I'd like to really have your expertise on my project. And he said yes. So connecting people together was the motivation that I got from these grant challenges. Is one person or one discipline can't do them all, but if we have the passion to connect them, it's possible, and we're making progress.
Thank you. Dr. Garza?
Yeah, and I think Ben stated it very eloquently, is especially what motivated me to get involved in the Grand Challenges, the Grand Challenge curriculum in particular, is that it did provide an opportunity for us to have these discussions on a broader level. I think in academia, we tend to stay pretty siloed. We tend to think one discipline is better than the other. But with the Grand Challenges approach, I think it provided, again, that opportunity to say, you know what, we have a lot of experts, very motivated experts. I think we're all in a privileged space, already self-motivated, but how can we work together to reach common goals? I think we all have common goals, but we really lack that environment, that space to be able to come together to do that. And so I think the Grand Challenges has provided that environment to be able to come together and see how we can address the broader societal issues collectively.
As for me, I'm also involved in a Grand Challenge project, and with faculty from drama, communication, and dance. And our project, is to look at various ways of thinking about healing from an interdisciplinary perspective. And the project is going to focus on healing space for women of color and girls of color. So, it was a very interesting proposal, to come together. It's not an issue that you can tackle just from a designer's perspective. I think, it's very important to have this interdisciplinary colleagues together, coming together to solve and think about issues related to that. And, to continue along that line, I think it's very important to educate students about community-related issues and design. For example, we've worked on real-life issues in class, from solving a calming room designed for K through 12 school in St. Paul. Basically, we were transforming that space from an institutionally looking environment to a better looking space. And, most times, design has been taught from like a Western perspective only. So students are really not familiar with like design precedents from other cultures and, from non-Western cultures. And basically, through engaging in issues like this, there was a time we also focused on, we got a small grant from Fairchild Publications to work on designing a set design for a local TV show that advocates for victims of human trafficking. And the lady who does the show is a victim of human trafficking. So design students were exposed to those issues, and they were able to develop empathy for, victims of human trafficking, while also solving design for a space, a TV set, to look aesthetically pleasing for a show like that. So it's, it's important to expose students to issues like this. And for me as well, as an academic, it's always difficult to only focus on abstract projects. So these projects have helped me also focus on things in real life and also, tackle issues that are important and important to expose our students to, basically.
Thank you. Professor Potter.
I have the privilege of teaching innovation, and what I teach about innovation is that the answers won't come from Ben in foods or Teddy in nursing. The answers come when Ben and I meet together, and here in this place, this shared space, novel ideas come forward, novel solutions come forward. So as much as possible, we want to create these spaces, and that's what the Grand Challenge makes possible. I love the Grand Challenge movement. I am so pumped up about it. I think it's fabulous, and I would like everybody to be involved, because I think we have mined our individual disciplines to an extent where we don't necessarily have the answers to these complex problems. So we need to start mining the relationship between us, what's happening between us. So I have the good fortune of teaching Global Climate Change, Empowering a Movement, which is a Grand Challenge course. I teach with a soil microbiologist, a professor of fish and wildlife, and a nurse. And it is magical. So what has it meant for me? It's meant, it's upped my game as a faculty, because my expertise is no longer my limited knowledge of my specialty. It's my ability to hear somebody else speak and go, oh, that will relate over here, And what I have perhaps will inform you, and being very facile in knowledge and the use of knowledge and the creation of knowledge. I also, because there wasn't a place to publish what we're discovering, I created a journal. We're the very first open access peer-reviewed journal through the University of Minnesota, the Interdisciplinary Journal of Partnership Studies, which is designed to be a meeting place where those of us that understand the solutions are coming from partnership can publish and get their word out. We've been up and running less than 2 years, and we've had over 7,000 downloads from around the globe, and we've reached 120 nations. And so this information, people are hungry for. How do you work together? How do you make that happen? It has also had a profound impact on my students in that at the end of our course, students said, we never want to go back again. We don't want to go back to the old way of learning. And they have been used to accessing on the internet the pools of knowledge. That's not how I grew up. People said, you either can be a nurse or you can be a teacher. Nobody gave me the option of you can teach and be a nurse. There was just such a rigidity about knowledge. And then you went to that one field and that one library and pulled the books off the shelf or the journals off the shelf. And now all knowledge is available. And students are used to that. Everybody's used to that now. And then they come here and they have to break it into silos again. And I think when we offer these courses that allow students to intersect and bring knowledge and learn from the other fields, it's just incredibly powerful. So the students are excited about that and really beginning to understand their roles in leading the change. This is about all of us. Nobody's coming into these Grand Challenge courses with answers. Obviously, it's a grand challenge. We don't have the answers yet. So we're co-creating the solution. So the students get to see the thought process of faculties, get to see how we think things through and analyze, how we say, we don't know. That's a good idea. Can you look it up? Can you be involved? Can you bring something? Because of that, I've already had, with this one undergraduate / graduate course, I've had students publish already. I've had students testify before the Public Utilities Commission. I've had students writing letters to their legislature and visiting legislators. So this is a form of learning that has tremendous power.
Great, thank you, thank you. Preparing Global Ready students involves multiple threads that braid together into one integrated, internationalized student experience. This includes the curriculum, professors' research, variations of the grand challenges, study abroad, co-curricular learning experiences, language learning, service in the community, and much more. What are effective ways to braid together the various strands of our work, specifically our research and our teaching? Professor Potter.
In my area, preparing our future nursing leaders, it is imperative that they have a global perspective. As a matter of fact, that's a core value and principle that runs through every course in our global specialty, or in our specialty area. And what I'm trying to help students understand is that they are learning and generating knowledge, not just to be applied at Fairview or mHealth or Allina, but to be applied globally and have a global impact. I also want them to understand that all knowledge does not originate in the United States. And so I am pulling through all my curriculum, research, practice models, teaching models from other parts of the world, so that they will understand that robust research, robust practice, best practice, use of best practice or evidence from best practice includes looking to the other nations. The other nations, if you compare the 11 nations in the world that have the most similar economies and the most similar government structures, the United States consistently ranks 11 out of 11 in health outcomes and efficiencies and effectiveness. 11 out of 11. And we outspend all the other nations by 2 to 3 times. That is an eye-opener for our students. We need to be looking at models in other places. How are they doing this? How are they delivering exceptional care with fewer resources, but still high-level care? So I want that sensibility to be in my students, that they will all exit as global leaders. I also want them to understand that the boundaries are not rigid. If you feel called to be part of the World Health Organization, the International Council of Nurses, you want to work for an NGO, Médecins Sans Frontières, you want to go and lead somewhere, absolutely you're ready. You are boots on the ground ready when you leave the University of Minnesota.
Thank you.
I agree with what Dr. Burr is saying, and I think another part is we need to create equal resources to everybody on this campus, no matter it's administrators, faculty, or students. It seems like there are gaps, especially from a student perspective, to see how professors' work are arcane and they're hard to understand, and they come to classroom and share their slides and give us a grade. So we might need to work on this model and to equally distribute our thinking, not only from professor to student, but student to professor, and also professionals who work in our university. These interactions need to be circulating, and they need to be a system approach in order to bring everybody together, bring the strains together. And an example I can think about is just students we're curious, but there's not a lot of resources for students. I'm very fortunate to be involved early in my 4-year journey in the University of Minnesota. But hey, 4 years for students is not that long time. And normally students begin to think or begin to have actions, accumulate enough knowledge in their junior or senior year. And that's only 2 years, and it's a short turnover time. So how can students get more involved and have more opportunities? We now have the Ground Challenge curriculum. I'd really hope that there are more classes, and I see a lot of potential classes just in my CFANS college that could just be converted 100% to a Global Ground Challenge course. But people are used to what they're doing. They're not changing much. It's a new proposal for them. They have to change their course title. They might have to write a new syllabus. All these are extra work on top of what people are used to. So we need to provide more, again, resources to the faculties that they can easier convert their classes, and I think the GCC course is the top advantage of this is to bring the whole university together, no longer just within the college or within certain departments.
Thank you. Sure.
Okay. My goal most times is ensuring my students are aware of global issues in design. So, for example, once we had a project in which I got a grant to study slums and squatters in South Africa, along with an anthropologist. So we went and we conducted some surveys, and we came back with lots of data and visuals. So in class, my students responded to those issues by designing affordable housing for low-income residents in Khayelitsha, in a slum in Cape Town, South Africa. And interestingly enough, one of the students, when she graduated, she went on and she actually got a job in the State Department as a designer of residencies for ambassadors all over the world, because, I got a call from one of the State Department facilities person, and she said the reason she picked that student was because she was so fascinated by awareness of designing in a different setting. So just to tell you stories of how and why this is important, you know. So it's important for students to be ready for that. And then we want to ensure that students are exposed to cross-cultural issues. You know, in design, for example, you know, when we look at historic design precedents, antiquity starts from like Egypt and goes on to, we go from Egypt to Industrial Revolution, and then from Industrial Revolution to contemporary times. So most times, you know, students are not aware of design precedents from non-Western cultures. So through my work, you know, I'm constantly trying to allow students gain an appreciation for cultures and for designs from multiple perspectives, because you never know who your clients will be. You know, we're so interconnected. Even design firms, local design firms in Minneapolis are solving problems all over the world sometimes, and they're looking for designers who are able to listen to and understand, you know, different cultures and understand things from multiple perspectives as well. You know, the other thing I wanted to comment on about that is our seniors right now are working on a IDEC, Interior Design Educators Council, is our Interior Design Educators Council, a competition. And I'm fascinated because the design competition has to do with designing a space for an NGO who is going to be working on service learning projects in the Amazon. And students are supposed to come up with a space in Florida where, prior to going to work on those service learning projects in the community, you know, people have to be immersed in the culture and learn about, you know, issues that relate to that. So it's interesting. Students are having to work on issues like, it's a national competition. I'm happy that our students are participating in that, but they get to read and, you know, look at how designers from different perspectives and look at precedents from design, from different design perspectives have responded to design. And then, you know, another short presentation I watched recently was by Mark, I think his name is Mark Smith, and it was talking about how design can heal, how architecture can heal. So he was giving various examples from different parts of the world and how they're responding and using elements and, you know, aspects from the culture to respond to various issues, you know. Even when we worked on the slums and squatter settlements in Khayelitsha, I remember my students saying that, you know, they wanted to solve the problem from an angle that, you know, if you know the history of South Africa, you know, apartheid occurred and, you know, the black South Africans were oppressed for a very long time. So the students were talking about coming up with a solution that doesn't continue to reinforce that whole apartheid and emphasis of oppression to the people. So you can see how design also relates to various community issues. So, you know, we have to always think about effective ways of bringing all those issues together as designers and collaborating with, you know, the community too. The interesting thing about that project too was we video conferenced with South Africa. It wasn't only, you know, my students couldn't go to South Africa for that project, obviously, but we were able to video conference with a school in South Africa, and my students talked with the students and they gave them feedback on their work along with the professors. So you could see how interconnected we are, basically.
Great, thank you. You've all talked a bit about the idea of having students learn in the context of being here on campus. And I believe that we hold as a value that the global-local approach does matter with grand challenges. If you could speak a little bit about effective ways to bring the global context into the local teaching setting and globalizing the experience for students here on campus. Professor Garza.
Sure. You know, I think sometimes we think about it as this great challenge for how we do that, but it's really quite simple. If we just embrace and recognize the vast diversity we have within our students, but not just where our students come from, our local communities, just the amazing richness of diversity that exists that make up this great state of Minnesota. We haven't really done a whole lot of embracing and recognizing that, I think, throughout our history as we've, really strived to become an elite institution. But we've kind of lost focus of that mandate from our community that we are a land-grant institution. We have a responsibility for the community. And so one of the ways I've done that, and especially through this Grand Challenge, initiative, and what I really loved about the initiative is that it really said, okay, we have a lot of amazing people on the university doing a lot of amazing scientists doing really great work, but what does that mean ultimately mean for our society? And so in that, it really legitimized a lot of the work that many of us were already doing in trying to reach out to the community and engage the community, have them a part of that process, and recognizing the work that they're doing already without us. And having them be a part of that solution, working with future professionals, our future leaders, to understand that they have a role and that they will be out there working with people who are already doing it. So it's not coming in from this privileged standpoint of an institution, of a, university education saying, I know the better solution. It's no, there's a lot of solutions out there. People are working hard at doing that. So through this Grand Challenge initiative, a large, component of our course is bringing in the community. So looking at the diversity of that community, the people who are out there working hard to create a better community and address the issues that they face every day. That they didn't see students work with and see, and in many instances from our coursework, empower a lot of those voices to help give them another platform and learn from what people are out there doing. And that became, I think, a really instrumental part of our course. And, it was the great thing about the Grand Challenge is it brought in people from a lot of different disciplines, a lot of students. We had people in genetics, chemistry, education, pharmacy, just a variety of disciplines, graduate, undergraduate level, professional students. So learning about a lot of the content, or in our course, I should back up, structural violence and the medication experience. So really looking at how societal structures and how they've been set up impact or marginalize disproportionately certain groups of people, and then what that means for people's health. So a really broad perspective of health. And we felt that we couldn't do that, in a way responsibly without involving the community, because the community sees it and they're working on it. And so they worked with community partners to be able to do that throughout the semester. We had community come in, people sitting in the class, just going through that educational process as well, but also contributing to a lot of the discussions and just seeing that those aha moments, those eureka, like, oh, I'd never considered this, or I didn't think about it in this way. Because we're oftentimes in our educational system, we're taught to think linearly. Our career preparation is very linear. We have a goal, and this is a track we think we have to take to get there, and we don't think about all the other things that impact that, even though a lot of the people before us have done that, but we sometimes lose sight of how they've done that. So that's what I think has really been an effective way of thinking about, from a global perspective, of what's going on, not just globally, but that our community comes from a variety of places, and that richness contributes to what makes it a great community.
Thank you. Ben?
Well, I think so in our local settings, on campus, students. So the two main components for a university student would be living and learning. When I come to the university, my dad told me, you're not only just taking classes in the huge campus, you're living there. So enjoy the moment with the young generations together, and spending time with intelligent professors and instructors. So I'd like to address this living part on our campus that could also contribute to classroom learning, because we're a very diverse campus, and we have students from all over the world. And coming here and being exposed wherever your home country is to this new environment would help you to develop global context. And so the problem becomes, how can we maximize it? How can we create multiple channels to students to get exposed to this globalized and diversified campus. And these could through events that are non that are co-curriculum, that are outside of classrooms, and and normally if you're not assigning a grade to certain activities, students tend to be more interactive to this, and so student club events. Where we do cultural celebrations, and these really stimulate students' interest, and to look outside. Oh, I made a friend today from another culture. I learned some new words in the new language, and these little things can happen local, can help students to think globally, and these can actually contribute, I think, to class assignments event. They could think, oh, what would, so such an issue, for example, land clearing happen in Africa, or how would that could possibly happen to the US, and how could we provide solutions or alternatives to such problems. And this could have, so in and out classrooms can actually help each other and to develop a system, a university learning and living experience that I think is essentially very beneficial for facing and possibly solving the ground challenges.
I meet people like Ben, and I am so hopeful for the future. Tremendously bright. Thank you so much. I teach my students to ask over and over again, no matter where they go, no matter where they are, who's missing from the table? Who's not here? Are all the ages represented? Are the different minority or ethnic groups represented? Are the different gender spectrums represented? Are people from rural, urban represented? Are people who are first generation to college represented? Are people who speak a different language represented? Are people who have a different faith represented? Those are the questions that bring the local home, is when you begin to know that the global is absolutely local, but in many, many ways. So if we can ask our students to be asking those questions, they will go out and they will, in their places of work, say there is not enough diversity here. They will look in their the boards that run their cities and towns and say there's not enough diversity here. They will look at the people we elect and say there's not enough diversity here. And that's where we can bring the local and global together.
Thank you. Thank you. And our final question as we wrap up here. When you think about why it matters to have global grand challenges in our curriculum, what would you say to a student who might be unfamiliar with this topic? I'll popcorn it open for whomever would like to start.
Ben, do you mind role-playing a little bit with me? No, do you mind role-playing a little bit with me?
Well,
Did you mind role-playing a little bit?
oh, no.
Okay. So I see you're wearing your maroon and gold. Do you go to the U?
Yes, I do.
Oh, great. What area are you studying in?
I'm a senior in food science.
Oh, that is really incredibly important. I teach in nursing, and I love to hear what other disciplines are doing because it's all connected. It's all absolutely connected. So
Oh,
have you ever thought about that?
nursing.
How food and nursing connect?
Oh, we have a nursing school here,
Yeah,
right?
we
I know
do.
that.
We do. And what we're trying to do is to talk more and more across the university about how our different fields connect. So I'm really interested in your work.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I am.
Great. I guess I don't know a whole lot of nursing. So what do you do? Or
Well, we're fundamentally concerned about the health and wellness of people. That's the bottom line in nursing.
Wow.
And so food obviously has a big connection.
right, that's food safety, which is a trending topic in our society right now.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm so glad there's people like you studying that. So one of the things that they do at the university, which I think is so cool, is they bring people like you and people like me together to study and do research on these topics where there's intersections.
Wow.
And food sustainability happens to be one of the grand challenges. This movement is called Grand Challenge.
Oh,
Food
great.
sustainability is one of it. And you can take these courses where you'll be studying with people like nurses, people in political science, people in the Carlson School of Business. You'll be studying with all these other students trying to address this problem.
Well, that sounds very interesting. I think I'll sign up with class.
Fabulous.
Gavel.
Well, actually, I'm in one of the Global Grand Challenge courses. So one thing I'd like to share very quick was, so I'm teaching, I'm taking the class, Can We Feed the World Without Destroying It? It's one of the trademark GCC course out there. And so that class got expanded this year, and I think we have over 70 people in the classroom where it's those round table in the Burnix Hall, round table discussion setups. And so I was just casually making conversation with people in my table. And so I just asked, so because I've heard about all the greatness of this course title, and I was just curious about how people heard about this and how people are, why did you sign up this? So I threw this question out, and people were like, I'm in the honors program, and this fulfills my honors requirement. Well, I'm in sustainable education minor, and this could fulfill one of my interests. And then say, I'm an environmental science student. I've taken one class from Jason Hill, and he recommended this to me. So we see various reasons, and one student actually said, one of my peers said, I'm so surprised that this class could fulfill so many requirements. So yes, well, they really tried very hard to sell these classes to our undergrads. So there are various reasons and people taking this class, and they come, I don't think everybody is at the same stage when they begin. So it's really up to the instructors and the peers who get it more to lead the conversation and to help students and to challenge each other, basically. And that's what the instructors are doing, is to provide alternatives, challenge people's conventional thinking, and challenge thoughts within their discipline. So I think that's very important to realize or to notice is people are from different stages, and this is a great question to ask: is what if they're unfamiliar? How can we? Teddy draw that very good common ground is it's health and food safety. How can we get more of these common grounds to people? So more and more people from different disciplines or can share the common interest.
Thank you. I'd like to have you join me in thanking our panelists today for their thoughtful comments and ideas and their commitment to this work. And we want to encourage you to continue this conversation amongst yourselves, because we know that this is a conversation that needs to happen amongst all of us and through all of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah.